Nyeba gunle namdul shing yende gungi genpa bo simchen gungi nyen chiku tamche kenla gun cha Omen jege yenge podane dusum sangye gungi ngowo ni rasim chego ngasuman denzebe zebe lame shabla so wa yende dambiche nyamsulimbi kulung sampo nge chungi sambadang janshub kisim salda bekoni dambiche nyamsulimbi shu
Let's start by arousing the excellent motivation, which is twofold: the mind of renunciation, the wish to attain liberation, and the mind of awakening, known as bodhicitta. And then, in that spirit, let's listen to the teachings.
teni dangansu lamki rimbe kola shubi kapre de nani teni lam toche ki shirab namba sum de shubi kapre dan de nani teni gomjungi shirab sayadi tade kasang tsawe nani gomjung weki nilu jishin sal se tade nala tunda niyebi nani kasang gom se kordi shuni dangansu gari gomgyo yore se na niluk di gomgyo yore la niluk di gomgyo yore se ni kecha di yungu yoba yin di ni na nipa wana niluk se di ta kandachila samlo tangko kare kandachila kuwa lingko kare se ni de shubi kapre
In this in this Dharma sessions, we are discussing the stages of the path, and we have reached the second stage of the path that refers to or discusses the wisdom, the one that we need in order to realize the path. And as the Mahamudra Respiration Prayer states, there are three types of that wisdom or insight. And among those, we are still discussing the third one. That's the wisdom that is born out of our practice of meditation. As the text states, the light born of meditation illuminates the natural state as it is. Right? In verse 5, that line refers exactly to this insight or prajna that arises from meditation. So here in this line, we have two important terms, that is meditation and natural state. So if we ask when we meditate, what are we meditating upon? Right? We're meditating upon natural state, as the text states. And so that's what we have been discussing in the last Dharma sessions. What is this so-called natural state or suchness? In other words, dharmata.
niluk di sheko batang gomko bati sheki tsawachi languzin chige yore tati gyumsin sogo di karare sana dini kange tang chupa tang nyota chasan di yana niluk di ma shepa tang yana shekyang dela gomba thar machin bala dini chungi yoba yindu ni nganzu chu drubikin gyurim nangla niluk sheya tang niluk gome se di da zoji lamgi rimba nani lamgi nganzu ina dumshi dawaji ningbu dawadi 차되게 그래.
The natural state, that state of suchness dharmata, is that what we all need to realize, what we need to know, and what we need to familiarize ourselves with. In other words, meditate upon. And this is actually the root, the foundation of the whole of the sacred dharma. Because all of our troubles, really difficulties, problems, all of that arise simply from just not recognizing the natural state as it is. Or even if we have recognized the natural state, if we know about it, then we still experience difficulties because we haven't perfected that recognition. We haven't really gained a stable familiarization with the natural state as it is, which is, in other words, the practice of meditation, right? And so we can say that this stage of the path, right, the one that we have been discussing about this wisdom that comes from meditation, is really is the crucial stage of all the paths of the Buddha Dharma. It's like the essence of all the paths.
제단 내룰라 림바 망보여래 트레달당 돈일라 소바 다 내룩 셰발라 셈라 레자지 용구여바다 아주 인지킬라는 broad minded와 아니 내룩디 마셰바이나 아주 셈바디 부수도고 narrow minded 차루와 아니 디차 용디 나란수기 emotional roller coaster di shira shushim boyung kore tadi oni 나란수 또 따제다나 lela 하고 그래 깔래 가요 말에 벤나 나란수 어디 쉬시
Generally speaking, this natural state, right, what we translate in English as natural state, the suchness dharmata, has many different levels. In the Buddha Dharma, we talk about the state of complete simplicity, freedom from all mental constructs. We talk about emptiness, right? But all of those various kind of levels of natural state, kind of what they really come down to is we can say what is really important when we talk about those different levels of natural state is to realize them, right? To really come to know them. And if we really can know them, realize them, then we become what Khenpo referred in English as broad-minded. And if we lack that realization, that knowledge about the different levels of natural state, what happens is that we remain narrow-minded, as Khenpo said. And when we are this kind of uptight and narrow-minded, lacking that knowledge of how things truly are, what ensues from that is really an emotional roller coaster. And that's not hard to understand, right? We can examine if that's really the case, right? That from our lack of knowledge of natural state, we become really uptight, narrow-minded, and from that, we are kind of riding this emotional roller coasters of our lives. We can just check our lives and see that this is really the case. It's not really hard to understand this fact.
배순다고지 슈바이나 간수 ngui nisu mashepa da ngule mache bacheni dila kyen gari yoresna ne katu ine yang yana todo gore yana kurvati gore te yang todo chungjung mai ba todo chembo kurtip chungjung mai ba kurto chembo tini todo ki loop dang kurtip ki loop mang bo yong do ba 가산 쉬고나시 타기스디 배나 난수 ngabo chöjila desha da bus ke bai na penang ara su ta a chi coffee den de da chi pe ga bu chin bai na ta ngone china ko coffee cham chira ba ko je ki chi nyong cha shire ine ya tini di sa cha ka wa ni yong yo ba di ki dhima ka so yo ba ani di temperature candle so go yo ba ka tu tung go yo ba sni shibu je ngan zu gun dro ta sha du ni de lan de cha de shu chum ba shibu ji go re ani ngan zu in ji ke la ka ka la na I cannot live without it like do ka ka la chunyo chunyo tin la ta phone ta wa ina re kan de na de so la an de ga na shin ki ngan zu chue ji la su su to zu she dang de ge yong du ngwe ne su de ngan zu ngalin ji gi ma re kurdi mangbu che gre koran la yundin yoba ine ya yundin di ma thongwa yundin thongwa din zu ya ngan zu ji ma thongwa na shin je ne pa be ge tapshe da wo ani tende yong gu ba ta di yong du ni ngan zu de cha de ya ji exaggerated de cha da bu shidang de yang de ni ko ji shida ge shup chim bu manans inchikela da out of control roba dinzu cha sang de da niluk di mishe pa da ngole ma che pa ani su su ki niluk ji su ni di pa ni ngobe kan la pa inchikela na impulse se roba da tende che sha wala tini ngazu emotional 강에 타장 망보직 아주 선도 야보 땅 바이나 된들 때는 이런 거래. 다 된수 아주 깔려요 말이 소소 도샤기 뒤 가득이 exaggeration 체기도 시단기 뒤 가족이 denigration 체기도 된술라 선도 땅 바이나 된데 레라버지는 아주 하고 그래.
Well, to give an example, how this lack of realization of natural state leads to this emotional roller coaster. So when we don't really come to see things as they truly are, right? When we are deluded, when we lack that understanding of reality, what happens is that then we either greatly exaggerate things, kind of see something that's really not there, or we denigrate something that's really there, but we denigrate it. We deny its existence. And we sort of exist continuously in this loop, either just exaggerating, pretending things are there, or denigrating and pretending they are not there, right? Living in that kind of loop. I already mentioned that a few sessions ago. We call it we call disturbing emotions in the Dharma. We have a specific technical term for them known as subtle developers, because that's what happens, right? From the subtle things, that's what it develops, the great exaggeration, great denigration. For example, right, just thinking about attachment, desire of something simple as coffee, right, which is just coffee. But we don't see it that way. Coffee lovers see it as, oh my God, I cannot live without it. What is the source? Where is it from? What country is it? How is it roasted? Is it dark roasted? Is it medium roasted? Right? Is it, which brand is it? Is it fresh? Is it not? I mean, we can go on and on and on about something like that, just coffee. Or like we say sometimes, oh, I cannot live without my phone. I mean, it's just a small thing. But you see how we tend to really make a big deal out of things like that? That's exaggeration. That happens a lot with the things that we are attached to. Same with anger, just a reverse process that we call denigration. When we angry, but when we really have anger which is out of control, we get so critical that we don't recognize qualities of things, of other beings, which are really there. But because of having this veil of our own critical, angry mind, we deny the existence of qualities, right? And even if we see them, something switches in our mind and we sort of pretend they're not there. Like we really deny the existence, even if we faced with it, right? Right there. That's what our minds do, right? We exaggerate because we have attachment to things, or we deny because we just have this uncontrollable aversion or anger. And those loops of exaggeration, denigration, attachment, aversion come from simply not recognizing things as they are. And instead, denying that like truth, we impose our own ideas about how things are, right? We all kind of create our own natural state, so to say, which is of course not the real natural state, but we think it is. We impose it, and then from that, we live in this kind of emotional roller coaster loops of exaggerating things and denigrating them. That's not hard to see. Really, I think we can look frankly at ourselves, at our minds, and we can really see very easily, actually, that's what we are doing. And that's what our minds tend to do.
Penangarazu Dachi dan Yenji Patrauchi Dunla Shani Samutandarawa Manzu Dachi dan Yenji na Dachi dan Kasaji dan Megasaji. That's also Magasadi meaning Jibchina do Nebuch Tongre. Suse Kasati do Nebuchinia Ning Jibuch Tongyudwa. Tini Suse Kasadi Lega Duja Cheva inaya. The Kongani meet a Duja Mara in a Pijaco Nori inside some Dosir. Then he called. And Susu Magasa Digilega Yaguji Jebaina, Lamsanji, Piche Cosemba de la Kagaji in Gure, Muni Lega Yaguji in Yumaris and Yang to Lamsanji, and Nando Mambushi Mudua. That is Shasan de la Ningazu. That door dinangazu. We need to the Hamagona, any Chadange, Gay, Chadan on the Shurondi, Anzu Talalung to Gurva, Chugi Jebaina, Talalung Segurva. To become an extremist. Talalung ni kadui ni ya ngaranzula dungai yungore sosola dungai shenla ya ni digi dungai chi tu yungoyo ba ndu nganzu ta nganzu tawa keje shiyangdu ume tawa sera jidan namba sanje be tawa komba choba uma keje mabu shigi ba tinzu chasangde tordina talalung gyo yo mare sebi kejere.
We can also take another example of someone we like and regard as our friend, and someone we don't like, kind of regard as our enemy. Let's say they are right there in front of us, and someone that we already made our mind about thinking of, like, I really dislike that person, right? Even if they are beautiful, like, not sure Khenpo speaking outer or inner beauty, but just said even if they're pretty, we will see them as ugly. And the friend, even if they're ugly, will see them as beautiful. That's what our minds do. For example, if a friend, someone we like, does something really nasty, our minds will excuse it and say, well, they're not that bad, right? This is just a tiny mistake this person made. We'll definitely find excuses to sort of cover that behavior. But where someone we dislike is doing something truly wonderful, again, our minds will elaborate and think like it's possibly cannot be the case. I'm sure something is fishy about it, something is wrong, right? Just because we already made our mind about that person that, okay, I don't like that person. So all of those kind of traps of attachment and aversion come in, they're born from us lacking that view of things simply as they truly are. And we call that lack of realization of natural state a kind of like we say about it that we fall into extremes, right? When we, instead of seeing things as they are, we this exaggerate, right? Project things, we deny things. So this is basically being an extremist and falling into extreme views. And for Buddhists, that's really the cause of suffering for oneself and for others. That's why in the Buddha Dharma we emphasize the middle way so much. You hear a lot, right? The view middle way, the meditation is again middle way, the conduct is middle way. Why do we emphasize this middle way, middle way? Because it's actually so important, right? Not to fall into those extremes.
Tindi nganzu nangpeki umase tiyan kwa dewa china ngui nisu la tini doku kore sini di sigi wari.
We define middle way as Buddhist very simply, just living the truth as it is, right? Being right true to things as they are. That's middle way.
Ta deka nanshingi nganzu namgyu di mi yakore, di mi dubure sini nganzu shiraki judgment mangu chigirwa objectively. Yinba yina yang ta samla yakpo tangba yina mi chigyo bache peshane. Mi diki, mi gyaki nani, mi kubju korgu la koki yakpo chigyo bache. Ani ta ngarang kyangba la koki yakpo chigime na nganzu gyache kya mi di dukja tang chigire. Mi yakpo chigimare. Deka nanshingi tini mi diki soso la yakbo chigyo bache. Koyo mi mangbo chila dubu tangi yone tatu nganzu mi di dubu yinba shira ngolin chigimare. Rwa, di yindu nganzu mi di sangbo re, ngenpa re, yakbo re, dubu re se ki taju che ki criteria do dan definition do budi yang dor di na susu la yakbo che na mi di yakbo yinba che. Ta susu yakbo che di susu samba nashi donda do dumna. Mena mi di duja re se rwa. Mado mi korangi rangshin sangbo re, ngenpa re, kogi mi shenpa la yakbo che ki do duja che ki do nganzu kyune sambo korang peche tang ma re. Di yindu dinzu yang ta nganzu chosu lung wara ba. chosu lung beki taju che re.
So we really think that all our judgments about others being bad or good, they're objective. Well, that's what we think, right? But if we if we reflect a little bit on this, how do we really make those judgments about someone being good or bad? For example, there's a person who is extremely good to like many people, right? Let's say to 99 people out of 100, he's really good and friendly and helpful. But for one person, which is us, happen to be us, right? That person is not nice. How will we define that person who is nice to others, but just to me is not nice? Well, we definitely will think, it's a really not good person, right? It's kind of is a bad one. And the same goes for someone who is bad to many beings, but somehow really treats me well. That's enough as a criteria. That will be enough for me to think that the person is good. Well, treats me well means fulfills my wishes, right? So kind of nice to me means fulfills my desires. That's enough for us somehow to define that person as being good in general. Like objectively, we think that person is good. So that's how actually extreme we are. That's not the middle way. That's us falling into extremes.
Ta dordi na ngaranzu misi nangla taju je yongdu ta dindegi nilu di mashevi genji ni unconscious bias shiraki shukchumbo chi yungu yor. Di nganzu hago go yor mare. En dinzu susu ki taji tani yakbo dang dugu se di nga dang dilwe ko ni nge taju chigidu we yang korang jidang mi di yakbo dugu la nge taju chigidu sambo tani ani taju chigidu bayi na shiraki kebar chumbo yungu re.
In short, we can see upon these kind of examinations that it is the lack of recognition of things as they truly are that create all these kind of unconscious biases that we have. And actually, because those biases are unconscious, we are not aware of them, right? So what to do? Well, we all need to try to examine ourselves honestly, right? To honestly check, am I defining others? Am I judging them just based on how they treat me, right? Myself? Or am I trying to be really objective and see how they are as they are, right? With a kind of not in relation to myself. So we can all ask ourselves these kind of questions, right?
So that need to carry in sugar na ni look said the Dordina ngoye ki nisul sila sigare ani ngoye nisul said the wang nga zuji shisha chine machin pai na ani ngoye shu yusum ju ko na nga zu semba de tu du gore semba de mashi ba cha du gore dine nga zu semba de shiwa ji da lobo ji da matu ba ji cha ko du na ani nga zu ki the reaction the response to the chasang di ngoye nisul shile shan to tu bai na ni semba de lecha chidang ni dang lakbar do ngaran zo la da mixe ki king ne ba de te yung ro ba di so ki sem de la to zo ji tang jin chi to be ni ba chum bu chi ra gre dinin ta di ngoye ne su she ba de la namba san ji bi ta wa se ge re ngoye ne su lo kom ri che ba de la namba san ji bi kom ba se ge re di 내가 지 차되기 열이 차되기 성사하는 게 그래서 배선다고 쉬어봐요.
Khenpo takzin chik sumpempe chik
당진 세나다 control. 만수기 다 셈라 shedan shuchumbo lan doja shuchumbo zunda ondu ngoy nisu la samlo tang to baina ani dodo dang kutip chig marwa di ma china lamsang shedan de to zu ma control che to gre doja lan to zu control che to wi nyoba chimbo chira gre.
Why am I discussing this? Why am I really telling you all of this? Because, well, in short, natural state, which is the true nature of reality, like how things truly are, like really affects all areas of our life. In a way, if we lack that understanding of how things are, directly or indirectly, it will affect our lives, that our minds will get disturbed. And we will lose that peace of mind, that clarity of mind. It's going to disturb our minds, and because our minds will be not relaxed, not at ease, we will respond, we will react different situations in our lives. We react like exaggerating with attachment or denigrating with aversion. So it really comes from that lack of recognition of natural state. And if we do come to see things as they truly are, our minds will be at ease, relaxed, which is opposite of being disturbed, right? We will be able to control our reactions, especially at difficult times in our lives, especially when faced with troubles, right? Because our minds are at ease, since we see things as they are, right? Not falling into extreme of exaggerating or denigrating, right? We just remain calm and clear. We can control then our reactions of anger and attachment. So that's really crucial for the Buddha Dharma, that recognition of natural state, that's known as Buddhist view. And then examining it, right? Of seeing how things are, examining things, that's known as meditation.
Teni ta kasang anzu kasu babe ki chachi molam ki nani teni sungbe ki nilukse delada chidang pena tawakadagi chakyashi dang tenbashi dinsuki ngoy nesu dinsu chasang ngaransu da ha kokoe dang gomgoe ki niludunsu chadigore ini yang ta tanda susu ngazu nyamsu lembe kapsula ani nilukse delata lüdang sem sini lü ngabu niludang sem ngabu nilu ni sheba dang gombala teni dipa pangni tokpa de rangyula keku yore sini da di ni sungpa nani da kaza ngazu lü ngabu nilukse di dinzu kola shubi kapluwa.
When we talk about natural state, generally, of course, we can also understand that the four Dharma seals, the Four Noble Truths, they all also, its teachings point out to things as they truly are, right? They enable us to understand, recognize natural state. But in this context here, in these teachings, we are presently discussing this word niluk, natural state, as it refers to mind and body. Khenpo. Yeah, as body and natural state of the mind and natural state of the body. Well, first body actually, secondly mind. So that's what we have discussed in the last Dharma sessions, and now, well, we will continue with this discussion of how we can come to realize, to know this natural state of the body, this kind of entities, the things, entities.
lü ngabu nilukse di tanda ngazu kasubaba da chachingi nyamlendang dewa chati du da dinzu nga dang dewa yobe kejare.
Well, in this context of these teachings, when we talk about the natural state of the body, well, we're talking from the perspective of Mahamudra, so the tantric teachings, right, of the Buddha Dharma, from the tantric perspective.
Chidang ngazu namba sanje beke dosini samlo tayong ditini kap kapla yuldang yuljen sekre kap kapla tani chidang nayan sekre da tindesini chi sidi da ngazu sudadiru rejatin sota nang sidi zo shepala dega na shingi yul sidi da sudadiru rejatin so yuljen sidi di nyamsu nyongken zo sekro da tinde namsha ini ki kone deshe kyabe da nyamlin chebe kapsa dosir bashin dugo.
So why are we talking here about this, the kind of natural state of the body and the mind? Because really, in the whole Buddha Dharma, always talks about these two dimensions. We call it sometimes object and subject. Sometimes we say outer phenomena, inner phenomena. For example, we say outer phenomena such as the form, sound, smell, taste, texture, and the inner is the consciousness. Or the same goes for the object and subject, right? We again in Dharma we always sort of talk about this from two perspectives. When we talk about objects, again that's the same. It's the forms, sounds, smells, textures, right? Mental objects. And the subject, what we talk, when we say subject, we talk about the experiencer, the one who experiences all those various sense objects. That's why in here we also talk about the natural state of this, right? These two dimensions.
Tadi kola tangbo ngazu tozo ji donga ki kola yang ji kengu gore. Di kande resina tanda ngazu de la lü ngobu nilu dan sem ngobu nilu sini she kwe di gyumsen de kare resina. Ta zo di tadi jidang ngazu 태과 첨부지 이내 송대 ngazuda miyu di tabadang tamji keme kopang dugo yorwa. Ini 탐지 켐발라 타르발라 바르도 쮸바디 뉴딥스 시겨래 탐지 켐발라 바르도 쮸바들 시딥스 시거다 조 아주 디바니 시겨래 봐 되니 당에디 가르진 슈거에서는 동학기 켐바라고디 봐 도당 ngaki lamse kheba chungor ba ta chidang dini da nyumom dibala tharas shayor shirib dibala tharas shayor ta kandar sanji ji komang thobar jebala diba ni ga tharada jeba yonsu sobar nyimbo tembe ko ni pangni ni sanji ko pan thokku go are
When we discuss the nature of the entities of body and the nature of the mind, it's important to differentiate between sutric perspective and the tantric perspective, right? In Buddha Dharma, we have the sutras and the tantras. So, in general, whenever we talk about the Mahayana, so anything starting from the great vehicle and upwards, right? All the different sutra, tantra traditions within Mahayana, they aim for the achievement of liberation and the state of omniscience, right? That's a given for all Mahayana followers. That's the goal. That's the goal of attaining liberation or attaining the state of omniscience, which is the state of a perfect realized Buddha. And in the Mahayana, it is said that what prevents us from achieving those two results is the two types of obscurations, namely the obscurations that block or prevent us from achieving liberation. That's those obscurations known as the obscuration of disturbing emotions. That's our difficult emotions, afflictions. And obscurations that prevent us from achieving the state of perfectly realized Buddha. That's the state of omniscience, known as the cognitive obscurations. Obscurations to our cognition. And again, furthermore, we divide those two types of obscurations into being subtle or coarse. So both types of obscuration of disturbing emotions could be quite coarse or subtle, and also cognitive obscurations could be coarse and subtle, right? And what is the whole Buddha Dharma, like the whole path of the Dharma, is about using antidotes to clear away, to purify those different types of obscurations, subtle and coarse, of both types, so then that goal of liberation and omniscience can be achieved, right? But why am I bringing this up? Because I actually want to emphasize here the difference between sutric approach and tantric approach.
ta chidang anzu do sengi tebe kapsula dini ta luis tanda lui rapadela samtangra zo dini da di ni nge khasan shubana shinga zu demba nya sha tanzu komyong du delan de sha ta shedang ta timu de gobi chedola dini mitak pa tang tungal ta tong dami de zu gomgo yore tong ni de la gomgo yore dini nga ke kapsula ta luila rakwa tang thawa dini ke je dini thabi ki lui dang da ki ngo din zo yang dini nga zu jungwa nga ta dini gyawa yam nga ta yum nga se ta ba dini tor dina ta nga zu dinde ki enchi ranglu gyawi ki hu komela so pa dinde ro ta dinzu nga ki tumong main bi ki thap chi cha de gre lam chi cha de gre
Now, discussing the nature of the body, right, from the perspective of sutras and tantras, and that's what we are doing here. So generally, in the sutric tradition, this body, that's the bodies we have regarded as just kind of a coarse body, right? There's not much talk about any subtle elements, but just the coarse body in itself. And the way to purify it, as I have already mentioned in the previous Dharma session, is through the mindfulness, the close application of mindfulness to the body, where we meditate on the different aspects of suffering, impermanence, emptiness, the state of freedom from mental constructs, to clear away those different kind of obscurations, disturbing emotions of attachment, aggression, and so on. That's the sutric approach, right? We take antidotes that I just mentioned and we use them. Practice of mindfulness to purify all those obscurations. Now, when it comes to tantric tradition, when we talk about the bodies, in tantric tradition, what's distinguished is that there is not only this coarse body in itself, but there is also subtle body, right? And this, when in tantric tradition we talk about subtle bodies, we talk about 5 elements, and we meditate in the tantric tradition on those 5 elements of our subtle body as being the 5 female and male Buddhas. There is this skillful means where we regard our own body as the mandala of all the victorious ones, all the Buddhas. Right? That's the practice to, to purify the obscurations of subtle body in the tantric tradition.
내가 난신기 ngaranzu dosingi tebe kapsula sosoki lungai sumdi ta zodi 상계비 땐저거지 뭐든지 그러와 이내야 아주 단 남주 개수 팔을도 되게 두싱다 그래 밀리런전스 도 삼았던 거 그래 근데 나게 kapsula다 lungai sum든 저 되니 링기 되베기 소소 상계기 구송 토기다니 dorjisum segrwa tende yimbala ani yimbar shebatan zula tawatang ani yimbar shebingang la shani ta kirim kometa kilkorda mambo kometa zula tini gombasani da tende ke keba yungdo wa
As then for the meditation, well, in the sutric philosophical vehicle, the body is regarded just as a support for Buddhahood. Right? This precious human life, usually equated to a boat that is useful for as long as we need to be carried across the ocean of samsara to the other shore. Right? It's like just a means support for us to reach the other shore. That's our body in the sutric philosophical vehicle. Now, according to the tantric tradition, our body is primordially, you can say already innately endowed with the nature of the three kayas, spontaneously present as the three kayas or the three vajras. And what we have to do is just recognize it as for what it is. And having recognized the true nature of the body being this kind of spontaneous, innate nature of the three kayas, the three vajras, we just have to rest in it. And that's what we call the practice of the development stage. When resting in that recognition, we envision our body, according to its true nature, as this mandala of the deity, celestial palaces, and so on and so forth, right? Known as the development stage practices.
da din zungi pyechen chamchi shubare luise de nyamlen la de dan den nan shingi de chidang azu donga ki kebar she yongdu kebar mangboji deni tab mangbo yeda meta deni düse yinu bu ko makorta da dinde ki deni kebar mangbo sungbare da dandang azu lyungobun nilu di semngobun nilu di ngondo kyobala lyungobun nilu di sheni ne nungu gre se di da nga ke kap ki jungsha be ki tumo mai be ke sha de yore
Well, these are just the examples of the differences between philosophical vehicle of Sutra Yana and Tantra Yana. Right, this body and the different perspectives on the body is just the example. Actually, there are many other differences between the Sutric vehicle and the Tantric one in terms of the skillful means. How many skillful means are being employed in those two different vehicles, and the time it takes to reach the result, right? And so on and so forth. Many other points of differences. Now, when come back to tantric tradition, when we talk about this natural state that we need to of the body that we need to realize, actually, it's really important stepping stone for the recognition of the natural state of the mind. Recognition of the true nature of our body will enable us to use skillfully the different points in the subtle body that will bring about or that will manifest the realization of the nature of the mind. So in the tantric tradition, you work with the subtle body. You use different specific practices to sort of point those, right? Well, you use those specific practices so that the realization of the natural state of the mind can dawn from that. So it's really important point.
Chidang tonga nyebudi kandisung yoresena peta wotini dotsingi thekwa sayade ngazude shingdong na shinchi shingdong yabo na shinchi debu nga ki thekwa sayida shingdong de ki tengdo le gesha be ki debu na shinchi re sumbare tiji da deni shingdong da de minbi kin debu nyebudi chidang da khagarwa ine kunzu shira chigi chigla tembarewa shingdong mena debu di yungu mare ina yang debu mebi shingdong de yang beju shirayo marwa di shingdong yang ge chumbarela debu yang ge chumbare ani korang kapsu ta tangbo shingdong tabe de ge chumbarela ani jesu debu saya de ge chumbarwa ta di ha mago ba cheni dini shingdong tabni debu ge chana ya shingdong de le tang ma thum ni la de ba na dige mare ngazu kapla dosing in thekwa shuk chumbo jugin den yang ngala ju di kang de hu ba shingdong la chakpa de shuk cherani transit di yabu je thugum de ba doni ngala de ya shingdong la zane donang zane ma je ba je da di nyora chabore sha nga tangbo ni debu di sagi insla ba je tongbo de le kyoni chu malu ka sabun mata ba je sha ba na din de ji yung gre di ya yo ya mare shingdong ta bu go ro ba di indu da khorani chidang khaga imba kan shila 아니 고랑이 대화 침부시라 요대 발라 고림티 따다치도 고도와 신동 답디 신동의 아버지 답 아니 대부께 차디 대부디 아버지 사 진 따다 차겨래 마도 대부사랜디 신동디 숨닌데샤 아니 신동의 산에 도낭 마지바제 깔레카버레샤스네 아니 대부경장스네 레바치테 바네 요아야 말에 동아기 람기 도당디 림바든자 데리라고 싶으면래
Then to understand the relationship between sutric vehicle and the tantric one, I'll give an example that of a fruit tree and the fruits. So the sutric tradition, the philosophy of sutra is like a fruit tree. And tantras is like the ripened fruits on that tree. And evidently those two rely on each other, right? We can't have fruits without first having fruit tree. And then if we have fruit tree, but that doesn't really yield any fruits, that fruit tree is also kind of useless, right? So we can see that in this way, they are like a support for each other. But then there's also a sequence in terms of getting like to the destination, to the end point of having like enjoying those ripened fruits. Well, obvious sequence is that first of all we need to plant the tree, and then at the end when the fruits are ripened we need to enjoy eating them. So what happens with some followers of the Dharma that they get so enchanted with the sutric tradition, they study so much, right? They're so immersed in all that philosophy that it's like they have planted the fruit tree and then they forgot to eat the fruits. So that's a shame, right? They're so attached to just like a tree itself that they like ignore that there are actual fruits there, right? For them to enjoy. That's why they planted it in the first place, right? And then there are other types of practitioners who don't want to deal with all of that, planting the tree means we need to first prepare the ground, plant the seed, wait for the tree to grow. They just want to enjoy the fruits right from the start, from the outset. They're just like, oh, I want to have fruits. I don't want to deal with that planting the tree. And that's also not going to happen, right? So if you want to enjoy your own kind of the fruits that you grow yourself, you first need to have a fruit tree. So you can't really jump that step and go straight to having ripened delicious fruits. So there's this very clear sequence order in this. First we need to have sutric knowledge of the sutric tradition, and then we can use that, and based on that sort of come to practice tantra and really enjoy those ripened delicious fruits, and not fall into either of those kind of pitfalls of either really disregarding the fruits, forgetting to eat them, sadly, right? Just being overly attached to the tree itself, or not really dealing with the tree at all and just wanting to eat fruits, which is also really not going to happen.
인디 아주 행동 답도 행동 거란기 답당 림바디 야보지네죠. 아니 대부면도 아니 대부 거란 야보 롱저 바이나 다다리도와 디마도 아니 고림데 투송아이나 야보 연구 말에 다 데나싱 아주 도층이 대비 냠린제도 도층이 대비 냠린 야보지 망시 야보 띵 아니 나게 냠린제 온데 드니 양나 거란기 따와고 맞춰바나시 도도 바이네 드니 야보 연구를 마도 다양 지 도당 갈기도 디단 디기민도 스네 망보 지 간주 삼르당네 델다 가테 바이나 드니 도니 ngalpa야 드에든줄 딘디 강한 용식이
So this kind of sequence is utmost importance to first slowly, right, plant your tree, deal with the fruit tree, and then once that tree yields the delicious, yummy fruits, ripened fruits, you can enjoy eating them. Otherwise, if you don't follow that kind of sequence, well, you won't really have good results in your practice. So when we practice sutras, or in the philosophy, when we study, practice, engage with the sutric vehicle, well, we need to stick to it. Just study the view of the sutra, practice its meditation, engage in its conduct, just that. You don't need to mix and get confused, but that contradicts tantra, what should I do or not? That's in this moment, that's the step, right? That's your stage of the path. And then only you can transit to the next stage, that of the tantric teachings, and then study, practice, engage accordingly to the view, meditation, conduct of that tradition, of tantric tradition, right? And that's the way to do it. Otherwise, what will happen, what Khenpo also mentioned previously, is that there will be no good transit for us if we kind of don't go in this particular order. The transit from the sutric tradition to the tantric will not be smooth.
인지kel라이나 지 수트라니 탄드라를 야두디걸 스무트 랜딩의 용음이도와
So in this, exactly, going from sutric to tantric vehicle won't be a smooth ride if we don't go in that particular kind of following that order.
데니 다 등상 안수 고대부터 버치는데 니 남주 페디 니 나랑기 디페디 슈고에 동하게 페디 페낭 안수 아티스트 버친바이나 다 남주 안수 도디 simplicity aspects of Buddhism sigurwa ngadi ani complexity aspects of Buddhism sini those dishi gamna godebu터 버치도와
I usually also employ another type of example, kind of an artist, where I compare sutric tradition to simplicity and tantric tradition to complexity. We can talk about different art forms, right? So the sutras is really just this simplicity. Tantras is where everything gets really complex.
데니 땅 아주 콘존이기 대화디다 빼샤나 아주 리무켄체기 리무 야보 닝제부지 디고도나 다 되게 시자데 야보고도 봐 되게 캔버스 때 야보고도 봐 템포임바 remove diamond mepa changma yimba smooth yimba chugo ba kawe yimba chin blank plain dimena remove ya ko ditu mare da di indu tini gyangi di background da with canvas da with di do singi the ba che da de kan la tini remove digro ba chonda mangbo tangro ba remove di tini ngak chi du da khonju ni canvas ta remove ni ka mone jena khakare canvas di blank re remove di chonda mangbo yo ba ani remove di sa di canvas ki kan la di ko ko ina khonju ni ji deba de shukchum ba shibuchdo wa lakbar do remove di yongbar cheba la inji mi ji canvas di 고구도 봐. 근데 내니 그 대바디 동학 그 대바디 되는다고 지 선망당 바이니야. 당초면 되는 거.
So, going back to this example of an artist, so to make a really good painting, the artist first of all needs a good canvas. Something that's that's a fun, really the first step towards having a beautiful drawing, a painting, a good clean canvas without already any kind of drawing on it. It's smooth surface, it's blank, right? That's simplicity, that's sutric tradition. And then the artist is going to use colors, right? And that's the complexity of it. The many various colors, few colors, that's complex. And that's tantric tradition. And obviously the canvas, which is plain, blank, is different from colors, right? Well, blank, something blank, and then colors. It's two different things. And nevertheless, there's a very strong connection between this blank canvas and colors. Because the painting is not going to exist without either of those two aspects. Like, first of all, if you really want to make a drawing with colorful drawing, you absolutely need that canvas. So that's the sutric tradition. You can't do without it.
다 도르는 가르치고요서나 아주 류업은 일로단 셈업은 일로세디 셈업은 일로 똑바르제발라 류업은 일로디 하고고래 네스 연구고래 스케치디 연구고래 다디 나게 개체단 대화 차디고래 아니 양 아주 망부지 나 냠린 제신바인데 동안이기 개발디 하고와 간실라야 데니긴 대화디 하고에 개침벌에 마도 도당 나스디 람가니다고 된데 말에 그 람기 림바치로 봐 아니 수수 가리 냠슬링게니야 대값을라 야보 냠슬링이 돼야지 내가 좀 버치래 진짜 좋디시고요.
In short, what I'm trying to say is that, well, we are discussing the nature of body and the mind. And in order to really actualize the nature of our minds, to recognize the nature of the mind, we first of all need to recognize the nature of the body, and then also recognizing that nature of the body, utilize this kind of subtle points of the subtle body, which is very tantric tradition, right? For recognition of the nature of mind. In Tantra, you go through recognition of the nature of the subtle body and using its various aspects, subtle aspects. And because it is a kind of very tantric tradition, I thought to talk about not only differences between sutric tradition and tantric one, but also the connection. Because many people think, many practitioners, Buddhists think it's like two different paths. Like this is sutra and here is tantra, right? They're two distinct paths. But in fact, they are not distinct paths. They are the stages, two stages of the same path. And what's important also to understand on what stage we ourselves are on our path and then stick to it, right? Engage, practice, study according to that stage. If it's sutra, it's sutra. Then you move to next stage, it's tantra, right? It's really important then to understand the differences and understand connections of these two systems. We stop here today. The teachings are going to be just 1 hour short. Thank you.
Janshu Semchu Rinpoche Magye Banamke Gyureche Keba Nyampara Mebai Gone Gondo Pelavaresho.
Yes. Next Saturday, the teaching is going to be as usual length. So thank you.